Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of Rabbi Adam Kligfeld's weekly Rashi study class.
Listening on the Temple Beth Am podcast series. We're back. Our long national nightmare. No, we're back, and it's wonderful to be studying Torah with you again. We never gather in a Jewish community or study in a vacuum, so let's acknowledge that we're in the midst of some very heady days that are magnificent and complicated. It's going to be both. There are going to be hopefully some magnificent images we're going to be witness to, and some horrific images and responses we're going to be witness to. But we might be on the precipice of seeing Israeli hostages alive come back to their families. And I know that every one of us has had this in the back of our mind when we gather, when we pray, when we study. We should bring it to the forefront of our mind and express gratitude that it has worked out, or that we hope that it will. God willing, it will walk out on Monday. We are on chapter 12 of the book of Shemot. The last verse and the Rashi was verse 32. So we're on verse 33. I'm going to read verse 32 just to remind us where we are in the story. I think we're good, Hector. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Hector, could we just make the output from the speaker a little bit louder so that when people on Zoom speak, we can hear them? Thank you. Just because there's a lot of outside noise. Okay. You really have to read verses 31 and 32 in a unit. This is where God calls out to Moses and Aaron in the middle of the night and says, Pharaoh calls to Moses and Aaron in the middle of the night and says, "Get up, kumu tsumitoch ami, get out from out of your people, gamatem gam b'nei Yisrael, you and all of the children of Israel, go and worship your God as you have said." Verse 32, Gam sonchem gam bekarchem kachu, take even your sheep and your cattle, meaning I'm capitulating on all the demands. Kasher dibartem valechu, as you have said, and get out of here. Uveirachtem gamoti, and on the way out, please give me a bracha. Okay, that's where we ended things. Verse 33 is a continuation, obviously, and more of the story of how we actually left Egypt. Okay, Larry, you want the in honor of your team's victory yesterday, you want the honor of reading, because I probably shouldn't even give myself that honor. I can't believe we gave an aliyah this morning to a Blue Jays fan. It's really, this synagogue once had standards, once had expectations, once had a certain dignity to it.
Who had the aliyah?
Can't even mention it. Go ahead.
I don't think my brother-in-law flew in here, did he? Okay. V'techazek. Sorry. Just lost it. Yeah. I'm not sure. Okay. V'techazak Mitzrayim al ha'am l'maher l'shalchem min ha'aretz ki amru kulanu metim. The Egyptians strengthened their people on hurrying to them.
You're reading Al Ha'am as their people?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
On the people.
Okay.
So the Egyptians strengthened the people. I assume it's their people.
Okay, we'll put that as a hold. Keep going.
Okay. To hurry to hurry sending them out from the land, because they said all of us are dead or all of us will die.
Okay, good. This is a great example of a verse where the vocab is easy, but putting the words together into a coherent sentence is harder, particularly because for the 900,000th time, it's hard to translate. We think we know what the word chazak means. It doesn't mean that we know what ancient readers heard when they heard that, those syllables, right? We think of chazak as strong, right? Where else have we seen chazak in this narrative? But techazak lev paro, right? So the English strong doesn't really work well there. Something like hardened, right? So if you throw hardened into here, what do you get, Larry?
So the Egyptians were hardened, I guess, on the Israelites. The Am is the Israelites.
Something like that. The Egyptians were hardened on the Israelites, right? And then continue the thought. They were hardened on the Israelites regarding what?
They hurried them to leave. They wanted them to leave fast.
Right. And if that's what it means, it's a wonderful inversion, because the hardening of Pharaoh's heart was to keep them here. And now the hardening by the people is to push them out, right? So whatever the word chazak means in English, it's I think a very intentional mirroring of all of the ways we have experienced chozek so far, and we're also going to get out of Egypt b'chozek yad, with God's strong hand. Can anyone think of another English way we could render this? Marshall, take the microphone. I know that's a bigger table, so you have to move the microphone more, but take it off its stand. It's easier to pass that way.
Actually, two translations. The first from Everett Fox. Egypt pressed the people strongly, comma, to send them out quickly from the land, for they said, we are all dead.
Okay, a pressing, okay.
Okay. And Robert Alter, and Egypt bore down on the people.
Bore down, nice.
To hurry to send them off from the land, for they said, we are all dead.
Okay, Rick, I see your hand. Are you weighing in on how to translate V'techazak? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Well,
Speak as loudly as you can, like you're doing Haftorah in a room with no microphone.
Hi. How about that?
Well,
the subject of the last sentence was was Pharaoh, right?
Right.
So why isn't the subject still Vatechazak? The subject isn't there, but he techazakt, if that can be a verb. So he pressed Egypt or he pressed his own people to send out the Israelites. So I thought it was Pharaoh doing the techazaking.
why grammatically could it not be?
I don't know.
It would be vayech. If Pharaoh is the subject of the verb, then it would be yechazak, not techazak. So somehow Mitzrayim, Egypt, is being turned into a single feminine noun, as midinot sometimes are, and Egypt as a feminine concept was pressing upon the people. Now, doesn't mean that Pharaoh doesn't have a role, but the way the verse is written is suggesting that the subject is Mitzrayim. I see Larry's hand. Go ahead. You want to read Aryeh Kaplan, then Leonard?
I'll read Aryeh Kaplan, and then I actually want to just go back to first altar again. And Marshall probably read it, because he was focusing on Egypt bore down on the people to hurry to send them off the land, for they said, we are dead men. We are all dead men, which I like that, the way that expressed. And Aryeh Kaplan says...
Wait, who reads it as dead men?
Altar.
Interesting.
We
dead men walking.
Right. We are all dead men. Sounds very modern vernacular. And Aryeh Kaplan says similar. The Egyptians were also urging... Where does the also come from? I'm not
I think
sure.
the also is actually a response to Rick's question, because we would have thought that Pharaoh is the actor here. Right. So since it switches to the Mitzrayim, Kaplan feels the urge to add in an also. It's actually responding to the thing that Rick was sensitive to in the verse.
Urging the people to hurry and leave the land, period. We are all dead men, they were saying, almost identical. But here's my comment question. I now understand the verse much better. Okay. But I would have written the verse to read something like the Egyptians urged or wanted the Israelites to leave quickly, or we will all be dead men in the future.
I'm smiling because I'm trying to think of how my teacher of blessed memory, Rabbi Yisrael Frankus, would have responded had someone in class said, well, had I written this verse from the Torah? He said, well, if we worshipped you, we'd care about that, but we don't.
Nobody ever accused me of lacking in chutzpah.
But flesh it out a bit. What's the...
Because as long as the Israelites remain amongst them, bad things continue to happen. What could be worse than this? Having lost our firstborn sons, presumably, and the firstborn of all the animals, we're all going to be dead. Unless they get out of here.
Don't you think that's sort of built into the key?
Yeah.
For they said, were it not for the fact that they get out of here, kulana metim. I think it's sort of implied, no?
No,
You just would have made it more explicit?
I'm only noting that the JPS, because now I'm looking at the JPS, says we shall all be. So the JPS does put it into the future.
Got it.
So, but that's my point, is that get out of here or we're going to be dead. We're going to be in deeper trouble.
Let's move the microphone down to see a lot of hands, so we got a lot of comments.
So this is just a grammatical point. English often uses present tense when we mean future, like this afternoon I'm going to the store is present tense, but we mean future. Hebrew usually is very explicit in future tense, which is when you listen to Israelis talk, they would put in a future where we would use a present to mean the future. So it's a little ambiguous. So I think...
Kind of, right? Machar אנחנו הולכים לים. Right, you hear that too. I don't know what it's like in biblical Hebrew, but in modern vernacular, I think.
That's like an English translation into Hebrew, right?
But don't Israelis speak that way?
Yeah, but they also,
You think
a lot
it's
of...
impacted by English?
Yeah.
Interesting, okay.
Going back to the word v'tazak, I'm wondering, since they're using this word that strengthen, if it's related to the fact that they're very weakened just a couple of lines earlier, and so they pull themselves together and just get rid of them somehow. So it really is more about them getting ready for the moment.
Their last mustering as a nation.
I think that it reflects a confusion by the Egyptians. We all know firstborn were killed and people who were not firstborn didn't die. But they didn't necessarily know who were firstborn and who weren't firstborn. We learned when we were learning verse 30 several weeks ago that about this, and so they just see a whole bunch of people are dying all of a sudden, mostly males, but undoubtedly some firstborn females were thrown in where there weren't males in the household. In every household, somebody died, and the pattern that was firstborn was not easily apparent because Egyptian women didn't adhere to the same moral standards that Israelite women adhered to. And so there's some ambiguity, and they really thought we were all dying. And, the cure to this plague is having you guys leave.
Yeah. If you didn't cheat and read Rashi, then Baruch Shekivanta, because that's almost it's exactly what Rashi is about to say.
Before, and I didn't get it from Rashi.
Well done, Norm.
This week's Rashi.
Norm. I mean, Barry.
Hello, Barry. I want to read something else into this. There's a vacuum of leadership at this time. This is not Pharaoh acting. When there's a vacuum of leadership and terrible things happen, people take over. Applying that to the current situation in Gaza, we've heard at times the Gazan people, when they're not afraid, want Hamas out, want it to forward. But so long as the leader stands forward, then that doesn't happen. Here we have a short circumstance in which there's a vacuum of leadership. The people are taking over.
So you're seeing the will of the people.
The will of the people.
Interesting.
And
because they're the ones who are going to die.
We find this at other historical moments in different cultures. The leadership may come back, but for the moment they're not there.
Thank you, Barry. By the way, I haven't said the bracha yet today, and leishev b'sukkah does not mean to sit in the sukkah. It means to dwell in the sukkah. Anytime you do something of substance in the sukkah, you say the bracha. So if you haven't said the bracha yet today, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu leishev b'sukkah.
Just on that dwelling, the first time we did a sukkah up north, we didn't know what it was all about. We read in the Joys of Jewishing, dwell, and we interpreted that so we made a cabin and we lived in it.
That's exactly what you ought to have done. I mean, the truth is that all of us do a kind of an ersatz sukkot, right? We're supposed to move into the Talmud specifically, leave your dirat kevra, your long-term dwelling, and then move into dirat arai, and we all should be doing everything, sleeping, eating, studying, and other things in the sukkah.
I will tell you that Barry and his
Hold on, we can't hear you. I want everyone on Zoom to be part of this. I know, but if you're going to say it, otherwise it's dead time for the Zoomers.
just to add into that Barry and his family, when his girls were young, had a 2-room sukkah with a bedroom. And it's the only family I know that had done that.
Wow. I've given this sermon before, but you mean I've been present, that I learned when I was in yeshiva retroactively that our family sukkah that I grew up with that I loved was unkosher. Because in 1986 on the East Coast, Hurricane Gloria hit Connecticut and devastated the state. And houses were knocked down. And our sukkah stayed up. And we were proud of it. We were proud of it. We had no electricity or water for 10 days. And we were on a well in Connecticut, so we had to drive 20 minutes to use the restroom, to a nearest bathroom. They were like local little community centers that somehow found a way to stay open. And we hosted on Sukkot. All we had was a gas grill. We made brownies on the gas grill. That's all we had because we had nothing in the house. And we were proud of it. And then I got to yeshiva and I learned that a sukkah is supposed to be able to withstand a normal wind, but it's supposed to fall down in a heavy wind. So all those years I said the bracha in Connecticut. I was offering a bracha levatala. It was too sturdy of a dwelling. I say this with great love from my father, who was very, very proud of his unkosher sukkah. Okay, Leonard, you've been waiting a long time. Yeah, and you got a mic. Look at that. You're prepared.
Yeah, well, I was after him.
Yeah, you didn't realize we're going Wittershims.
We have a Orthodox cousin from New York, who moved out here for a couple of years, and he built an East Coast sukkah, which I'd never seen anything like it. It was solid. It was made out of plywood. It had a real door.
Yeah.
It also had a bed inside.
Well, I'm here 16 plus years. It's still weird for me to have the primary physical discomfort on Sukkot to be too hot and not too cold. To me, right? Sue, can you give me an amen, right? You had it worse than I did, but Sukkot is sweaters, jackets, pea soup, and pine needles.
Okay, so for Chazak,
Yeah.
if you remember, we were talking about that.
Oh, we were?
once upon a time.
Are we talking about Rashi? Go ahead.
So, in addition to be or grow strong, it also means to hold fast. But if you look at the cognates, you get a hint to more what's going on over here.
Okay.
So in these other languages, it means things like to be bound on, to be girded up, to be bound, to be squeezed, to fetter. All right. And so what it says here, it doesn't even use the word probably, as it often does. It says original meaning of this base was to bind fast or tight.
Bind fast or tight, and a kind of a pressing. Yeah. Yeah. The root is pluripotent in Jew speak, right? What's it called when you do something 3 times in a row and it becomes it's called a chazaka. You can't translate that phrase with the word strong or hard. It's something else. It's an established pattern. It's something that is enduring, right? Like if you do something 3 times in a row, right? It's expected that it's going to continue. It's just a different concept than the English word strong. Uncle is translated as vitakifat, taf kuf pei, takaf. Takaf in Aramaic means to attack, or it means to be. We have it in adir hu, in takifu. We're not saying that God is strong there per se. We're saying that God has some kind of like an enduring presence, right? The word means different things. Sue or Marshall, you're next. Wait, microphone.
Actually, the translation I saw for Onkelos was the Egyptians pressed the people.
That's the translation of Onkelos?
Yeah.
Interesting. So that as if the root takaf in Aramaic means to press.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you.
In Hebrew, this isn't working.
Hold it in the middle of the mic. Yeah.
Takaf in modern
Stand on one
Hebrew
foot and lift your right elbow.
It doesn't mean maybe you could, to avert.
Yeah, hakafa.
Oh, that's different.
That's to
okay.
encircle. Yeah.
That's a kuf. That's a kaf, not a kuf. Also kuf.
But in takaf, the root that Onkelos is using, the taf is part of the root. In the verb lahakif, sometimes the taf comes in the construction of a noun, but it's not from the root takaf. Yeah, is takaf used in modern Hebrew as a root, Rebecca?
Use takaf latkif at Hamas, for instance.
To attack.
To attack. But it also means tkufa, so right period of time. Tufat pagim.
I'm not sure the taf is elemental to that, right?
Right. I was wondering about that.
We have a laner amongst us. Steve, you know this from Megillah. Where do we have the end of the Megillah? Does it come to you that the Israelites, the Hebrews?
Tikufat Hashanah is the
Tikufat Hashanah, I think it's from Lahakif. It's the circle of the year, but that the Jews of Shushan did everything that they were going to do at Kol Tokef, with full force, full strength, full endurance, right?
So I've only learned the first half of the Megillah.
Well, next time I have a first half Megillah trivia question, I'll turn to you. Okay, Rick, your hand. Oh, Leonard, and then Rick. No, you're done, Rick? Okay.
I was just going to point out that in Kohelet, they use the word takif. It's the only place in the Bible.
Only place in the Bible where that root is used?
Where that word, takif.
The actual word takif?
Takif, right.
What's the verse?
6:10.
Let's look it up. Hold on. Kohelet, that's a very appropriate reference, by the way, because we'll be reading it soon. 6:10, Leonard?
Yes.
I'm going to put it on the screen.
That's takif with a patach, with a kamatz, apparently places.
Uh-huh. Okay, let's see if I can make this big enough for people to see it on the screen.
And they translate that mighty powerful.
Masha haya kefar nikra shemo. Whatever happens, it's already been given a name. Benoda asher hu adam, and it's known to any person who's human. Below yuchal ladin, but you cannot judge it or understand it. Im, and there's a creative shetakif mimenu. So the translation here, at least JPS, is translating takif as strong. That you can't contend with something that is takif meno, stronger than you. The words have lots of possible meanings. Yes, Marshall.
I don't know if I'm remembering correctly, but the word betokef, doesn't that have a sense of with urgency?
It could be that too, yeah. Which also makes sense here, right? An urgent pressing. Okay, good. Anything else on the verse itself? I'm glad that we've beaten this. We've chazeked this verse down to its bare minimum. Now let's look at the commentary of Norm Green. I mean Rashi.
I'm going to read the Rashi, but I'm going to ask now later for Norm to explain exactly where the immorality of the Egyptian women comes from, because I don't see that part.
Okay, did you just use the word now and later consecutively in a sentence? Because that's very well done. I'm going to ask now later.
Maybe I did. Right, bittersweet, and what were the other ones yesterday?
And open secret.
Oh, right.
We have a 40-year shtick in our family that there was something between my mother and my sister. Either my mother or sister was saying about someone, I usually see them every day. I'm like, It's either usually or it's every day, right? You can't usually see someone every day, and whether or not that has merit in logic. So now later you'll ask Norm for something. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I usually see somebody every day, but today I didn't see her.
Then it's not every day.
Amru.
I understand that part too. Okay, go ahead.
Amru. Lo ki gizerat Moshehu, שהרי אמר ומת כל בכור, וכאן אף הפשוטים מתים, 15 בבית אחד.
Okay.
So I'm going to translate this in the following way.
Okay.
So what they were saying was not as according to the decree of Moshe,
right,
was this, because there, meaning what Moshe decreed, is he said, and the Bechorim, the Bechor will die, the firstborn. But I don't think they mean firstborn here. I think he means Bechor as a status position, because the Bechor has a status position.
Do you think that's what they meant, or that's what Moshe meant?
I think that's what Rashi thinks the decree meant. Well, you'll see in a second.
Okay.
Because then he says, but here, meaning in what was actually happening, even the simple were dying, meaning not the Bechor. Mm-hmm. Bechor as opposed to the normal people, the everyday people were dying, 5 or 10 in each household. So it's kind of what Norm was saying. The people didn't recognize that it was literally the Bechorim, the firstborn, because lots of people were dying and they hadn't put it together yet.
Right.
And what Rashi seems to be saying here is I think is kind of true even in Judaism, because if I'm not mistaken, occasionally a Bechor can substitute for a levy, like for the hand washing for the Kohanim if there's no levy there.
Never heard of that, but doesn't mean it's not true.
We did that in our shul in Morashet Avraham in Yerushalayim.
Liberals. I haven't heard that in Minhag, but it makes some sense.
So the Bechor has some status. So not only were people, Moshe said only people of status will die, but here we're seeing people who are just ordinary people dying.
Interesting. I'll grant you that Rashi's use of the word pashut here is strange, at least according to our understanding of pshut, right? Again, 1,000 years have transpired, so we don't know if in 11th century France, pashut, simple, meant not only simple as opposed to sophisticated, it meant unadorned, right? Like a child with no status. Which child has the status? The Bechor, but he might still have meant Bechor as firstborn as opposed to having some other special category. What Norm was referring to in the super commentaries put us back on this, sometimes Rashi assumes that you know Rashi. Right? Not always. Sometimes if he's being self-referential, he will quote something that he said a while ago. But sometimes he assumes that if you've gotten to chapter 12, verse 33, you know and remember every other thing that Rashi said. So look back on verse 30. It wasn't that long ago. For us, it was long ago because we haven't studied in 6 months. But it wasn't long ago in Rashi terms, where, as Norm said, Rashi reads verse 30 as a expose on the looseness of Egyptian women, right? Look at verse 30. The verse is, Vayakom Paro Laila. We read this a few seconds ago. Pharaoh got up in the middle of the night, and as Rashi said, he got up like in a night frenzy. Hu v'chol avadav, all of his servants, v'chol Mitzrayim, all of Egypt, v'tehitza kagdola b'Mitzrayim. There was a great cry in Egypt. Ki ein bayit asher ein shamet. There was no house in which there was no dead person. To which we logically responded, why not? Does every house have a firstborn male? Well, you might not have thought it unless your women are prostitutes and sneaking around underneath the noses of their husbands, and some of the children in this house are firstborn to their fathers, but unbeknownst to all the people in that house. Like, it's a fanciful fantasy of our being able to critique the Egyptians for their loose morals, which meant that every house had at least one person who died, even if it didn't seem like it was a firstborn to the married couple, right? And Rashi says that explicitly. Look at on the concept on his comment, ki ein beit bayit asher ein shamet. All right, look at the davar acher, a second comment on that phrase. Hamitzriot mizanot tachat balaihen. The Egyptian women were whoring themselves under their husband's eyes. Violdot meravakim. And they were giving birth to otherwise single men who would not have thought that they had firstborns. Pnuyim, available men. Hayulahem bechorot harbeh. Therefore, each woman had many bechorot born to them because they were bechor of their husbands, of their fathers. Ufamim hem chamisha lisha achat. Sometimes 5 bechors to one woman. Shekol achad bechor la'aviv. Each of them was a bechor to their father. Rashi is very clearly referring to this in this comment without telling us he is. And if we had studied this an hour ago, it would have made sense. Okay, see Stevie, and then we'll come down this way to Barry. What's that? They had baby daddies. And we've talked about this, a lot, particularly when the Torah deals with Esav and Yishmael, how fun it was, how cathartic it was, the endorphin rush, you can imagine. The rabbis of the Talmud and the beleaguered Jews in Provence during the Crusades to just make fun of their enemies in words that their enemies were never going to read. It's probably an extraordinary feeling to just imagine those Egyptians as being loosely moraled. And does it correspond to reality? It doesn't matter on some level. Stevie.
Yeah, just that more than half the Rashis on Shemot are quoting from the Mechilta, and the Mechilta, in this case, spells it out in full paragraph form. Ki amarnu kulanu meitim, amru Moshe amar lanu b'chorot meitim, ve'anu ro'in b'chorot v'she'ein b'chorot. Right? That Moshe said b'chorot would die, but we see both firstborns and those who are not firstborns. Ve'hein eino yodin shekulan shetofin b'zmana ba'achad al eser nashim, ve'aldu lo asra banim, v'nimseu kulan b'chorei nashim. Right? Because they did not know that all these, that before in this time that came on one, like one person came on 10 women and had, 10 children that are all considered bechorim to that woman.
Right.
And then asra ba'u al eshet echad, v'noldo lehen asra banim. Right. So then the gender reverse of that happens. Correct. Of 10 men all impregnating the same woman, and kulan bechorei anashim, l'chach amru amanu kulan meitim. And therefore it says everyone is dying. Right.
So pause 1 second. So Rebecca, to your point, you are right that the ancients had no problem blaming certain things on the women, but the original midrash is equal opportunity blame for the loose Egyptian men and the loose Egyptian women.
Mathematically, I still don't get how that works.
Carry the one, and it's log 3. Barry and Barry, then Rebecca.
So I always thought that firstborn meant one womb, the firstborn.
Yes.
Here, the implication seems to be each man, the firstborn could be out of the same woman.
Right.
Multiple births from the same womb.
Right.
I'm confused.
Yes, so you are correct, Barry, because your knowledge of modern Jewish halachic practice is spot on, that halachically speaking was a much later concept than biblical interpretation, or it doesn't have to respond to biblical interpretation, is that for you to be a bechor as a Jew, such that you're obligated to fast Erev Pesach unless you go to a feast, you have to be the peterechem, the first, you have to be male, you have to be the firstborn of your mother, the first time that the womb was knowingly filled, right? So if there's a miscarriage, God forbid, or if there's cesarean section and you didn't come out the normal way, you are not a bechor, halachically. It's also the case that when the Midrash and the medieval commentators are toiling in these verses, they give themselves the flexibility to think of the word bechor as more expansively, a firstborn to either mother or father. So you're correct, which means it's a well-earned confusion.
Another comment, I don't know if we read it already in Rashi, but the implication is if a Bechor wasn't resident in that house, then the eldest of the house would have been killed, not a Bechor. It's here someplace, I saw
Well,
it.
we said that, I think it's the reverse, that the Bechor, no matter where the Bechor was, the Bechor was killed, even if the Bechor wasn't in the house in which they became a Bechor.
I think it's someplace we're going to read it here that if a Bechor wasn't resident in that bayit, then the eldest of that bayit would be taken.
Stevie and then Norm, or Norm and then Stevie? You can battle it out. Oh, Leonard. Or Rebecca. Okay. Oh, okay.
I was just going to say that the concept of Bechor and Pederechem, right, probably starts with sacrificing certain animals.
Correct.
And it's hard for me to imagine that the animal breeders were terribly concerned about like which animal fathered the various members of the flock, right? Presumably they're only keeping track of the so
Unless they had really good security cameras.
They did have selective breeding, but that they again probably still use just one male.
Leonard, because you have the mic, and let's send the other mic down to Norm so we can move it more quickly. Go ahead, Leonard.
So I think it's kind of curious that Rashi uses the word Bechorot instead of Bechorim. So you could say, maybe a woman can be a firstborn.
Bechor is one of those Hebrew words that can be pluralized both ot and im for no good reason. There are some that are pluralized the opposite you'd expect, like makom, makomot, but there are a couple of words, not just the ones that have been Yiddishized, like talesim and talitot, that's a Yiddish thing. There are some Hebrew biblical words whose plural have ot and im endings, and I can't remember the other one that's more common. Lila is more, There's another one that's more common that you see both endings, but it may or may not be referencing something about the gender of the thing that's being discussed. Norm.
We read someplace, probably in connection with verse 30, and we know that somebody died in every household. So that means that even in a household...
Is that on? Are you hearing that?
You hear it?
You are? Okay.
Where even a household where the husband and wife are not firstborns and their firstborn child has already moved out, somebody in that household will die, presumably the head of the household, being treated as the most important one, although in some cases it might be one of the children. But so that in every household at least somebody died.
Yeah.
We have to believe mathematically that it's rare that there would have been 5 people in one household, all of whom were firstborns to their respective fathers. But certainly it's possible in a few that it was that extreme. And that to the Egyptians, it just seemed like an enormous plague where people were dying with not very much rhyme or reason.
Yeah. Good. Rosemary, and then we're going to go to the next verse.
Just to take the side of Egyptians, in Egypt, I don't think it was like now. They had probably 3 wives. So if to the side of Egyptians, it doesn't mean all the women were loose, because in Egypt in old time, I'm sure they were marrying like 2-3 wives. So in each household, there were 3 firstborns.
It could have been understood that way too. And again, the Midrash had the joy of reading it in such a way that could insult the Egyptians on the Israelites' way out. Okay. Shkoyach to everyone on that verse. Let's go to verse 34. Let's see. Let's involve some Zoomers. Joel, do you want to read verse 34? We're making up for lost time.
Vayisa, can you hear me?
Yeah. Speak a little louder because there's a lot of ambient noise in the field.
Vayisa ha'am et tzeko terem yechmatz misharotam tzruot besimlotam al sichmam.
Good. Okay. Translate.
And the people raised their dough, Betsy?
Yep. Raised, took, lifted up, bore, right? That's the root. The verb vayisa is from the root nasa, which means lots of different things. Just look for a second. It's translated by Unkel's as unnatal, which makes it very clear that netilat yadayim does not mean washing the hands. We do wash our hands for netilat yadayim, but the phrase means to draw your hands up from having been immersed in water. That's what the netilah is. Okay, go ahead. Which is why some people are very careful about the fact that they wash their hands and then they say the bracha kind of as they're essentially drawing them from the water and drying it, because that's the netilah. The netilah isn't the washing, it's the clearing the water from the washed hands. Correct. Netilat lulav, the bracha we just said, has to do with taking, lifting, etc. Okay, go ahead.
Terem yachmatz, before it could ferment.
Okay.
Misharotam, from the remaining shar.
It's a hard word. Okay, something. It's hard to even know if it's a verb or a noun, and Rashi also is not 100% clear what it means. But so let's say that misharotam can be broken down as misheret shelahem. Even if we don't know what the word misheret means, the am is there, and that the singular noun would be or misheret, and the plural would be misharot, misharotam. So with their misheret, whatever that is,
bound up, right?
Good, bound up. Tehi nishmatot surah b'tzror hachayim. May their soul be bound up in the bonds of life. Go ahead.
Tzror, in their clothes.
Good. Simla in modern Hebrew means dress, but in biblical Hebrew just means clothing.
Shichmam, was that shoulders? I don't know.
On the shoulders, yeah. Modern Hebrew shoulders a katef. Biblical, it's a shechem. If you look over at Unkel's translates simlotam as bilvashehon, in their garments. So clear that it didn't mean a specific garment, but just garments in general. And look at Unkel's translates shichmam as katfehon, katef. So the modern way we say shoulder is already built into Unkel's translation into Aramaic of shechem. Okay. So this is an important verse. This is one of the stories that we, tell ourselves and our children as to why we eat matzah on Pesach. That having been pressed and chuzakt in the previous verse by the Egyptians to gather quickly, the people therefore took their dough, terem before yechmatz, before it chametzified, and with their misheret, whatever that word means, bound up in their garments or in their fabrics on their shoulders. Okay. Yes, Rebecca. We use that mic because this mic isn't working so well. Where's the other mic?
Can misharotam relate to the word seor again? So it didn't ferment from their leaven. Sort of going back to the we saw them use these two words.
Yeah.
Sort of together.
I think for midrashic purposes, sure. I think on a pshat purpose, I think it's a little too cute if we accept the shin and not the sin, right? The shin, there's no dots, and sometimes the rabbis play games with that, but whatever seor is, it's a different word than she'er. Most people understand this having to do with the root she'er, something to do with remaining something, but sure, if you wanted to drash that out, or at least convey the appreciation that the text has these, on a letter level, an internal flow. That's very interesting. We hadn't seen that in the letters before. You got your next door. Go ahead.
Okay. The whole notion of whether there was leavened bread or unleavened bread is a little puzzling to me, because Bnei Israel knew what was going on. They knew that they were going to be leaving, and it takes 18 minutes to make leavened bread, and not have 18 minutes. Yes, yeah. Well, yeah, but in Varim, we learn when we hear the story, we say, well, because we had to leave in a hurry. That was sounded like it was the creation of matzah, was because they had to leave in a hurry. And of course, matzah, maror, and korban pesach were all part of the first seder in Egypt. So it wasn't created then, and it seems like there wouldn't need to be matzah necessarily. There could have been leavened bread had they chosen to do so.
Yes, Yes. Norm, and then Stevie.
Already the night before, when they ate the lamb and they were required to finish all of the lamb, they also had it with matzah and more by commandment. Not because of lack of time, but because they were specifically instructed by HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Moshe Rabbeinu to have it with matzah and more. And so, while they were required to finish all of the lamb before night, they probably had some leftover, some leftover matzah and moror that, of course, they could bring with them.
Good. Stevie? No? Oh, yeah.
I would say I really like the idea of connecting the word with sho'or. If we're gonna if we understand it as conventionally we do as kneading bowls, that we think that kneading is what keeps it from becoming chametz, right? Keeps it as sho'or.
Nice.
And right, it's like we say machelet is the knife in the Akeda story, right? Or at least Rashi says that. It's like the mem is the device that is used to make something this way. So the thing that keeps it as soor is the kneading bowl. It's a neat connection.
That's great. So if you combine what you said and Rebecca said, it might indeed be the case that this word is built from the unpointed sin shin aleph resh, and that it's based in the thing that prevents it from becoming chametz. Very nice. I never thought about that. Larry, Barry, and then I see Rick's hand up.
I want to go to the connection between the previous verse and this verse.
Okay.
Which I never really thought about. So if I'm reading this correctly, the Egyptian populace is actually encouraging the Israelites, get out of here, even though we know the Israelites are living in Goshen and all that. But they're the ones that are actually saying, go out of here before something worse happens to us, right? But at the same time, and I don't know when this actually is supposed to have taken place in the narrative, the Israelites were supposed to have taken the silver and gold and jewelry. Huh? It's about to happen. So is this part of the narrative? So in other words, the Egyptians are saying, get out of here. In fact, take our silver and gold. Well, like Esther Marcotte, go on, get out of here. Leave our fold. Take our silver. Take our gold.
Yeah.
It's
Henny Youngman.
Well, no, that's the Esther Marcotte rap. But anyways, okay, I'll save the vibe for two more verses. But all I'm saying is, I never really thought about this as being the Egyptian populace is taking matters into their own hands. Their pharaoh has done a terrible job of protecting them, and they're saying, we've got to save ourselves. Get out of here.
Yeah.
How can we encourage you to get out of here? That's coming.
Going back to what Barry had said before about the people's will being expressed. Who is next? Barry and then Rick. While Barry's take the mic, Marshall, do you have the translation of the Onkelos on verse 34? I'd like to see how Motar Atzvatahon is translated. Go ahead, Barry. So we'll get to you in a second. Which one you prepped it?
So as a director trying to make this movie, and as one who makes challah, I'm a little confused.
Okay.
Normally, you put some leavening in the dough to make it rise. In the kind of bread they used to make then, did they add any leavening to make it rise, or is it just dough and water, and the air makes it rise?
From the air.
Okay, that's one question. The other is, I'm bringing up again that all these things they're going to have to do logistically before leaving is going all around and getting the gold and the silver and stuff like that. And we're talking about 18 minutes. This is more than 18 minutes. So what's happening to the dough while they're going around and collecting all this stuff?
Yeah.
It's rising.
Yeah. Rick, I'll go Marshall first. Get Marshall the microphone.
Actually, off Safaria, there's the translation has some words in brackets. So I'll read it first without brackets, then I'll read it with the bracketed words.
I'm going to share that with everybody so people can see it. Okay. Go ahead.
Got it. The people took their dough before it was leavened. Their leftovers were wrapped in their clothing on their shoulders. And then with the brackets, the people took their dough before it was leavened. The leftovers of their dough were wrapped in their clothing and carried on their shoulders.
Right, which suggests that if you look at the Onkelos either on the screen or in your book, hold on. Where's the screen? No. What verse is it? Here. It suggests that, see the words in bold on the screen? Oh, you can't see it because it's, I don't know how to move that. But Onkelos translates Mish'arotam as Motar Atzvaton. He puts it in bold, which makes me think that there are some manuscripts of Onkelos that don't have both of those words. The Motar is from Yoter, which means extra, which is clearly reading Misharotam from She'er, the leftovers, not from Se'or, right? And I guess Atzvaton is of their dough, right? Which the dough also is related to the sin of Se'or as opposed to the shin of She'er. But Onkelos is primarily reading Mish'eret as the things that they had left over, those things that were Nisharim Lehem. Okay? Rick and then Rebecca, because Rick was waiting, and then we'll end with that.
Hi. Just a couple of observations on the first word and the last word. When I saw Vayisa, I thought of Esa Enai. I lifted up my eyes, right? And so when the Egyptians said, get out, the Israelites didn't start praying to God. They didn't look up to the heavens. They busy themselves with making food, which is what Jews do. The other thing on the end, a shout out to Avi Peretz. The one time I went to the second Seder at the temple, he did this thing about the plate on the shoulder leaving Egypt. And, yeah. Yep. So I love the image on the shoulder carrying the stuff. So I think it came from right here, right? So
yeah.
Anyway, that's it.
With a couple of steps in between. Who is next?
I just wanted
Rebecca, and then we'll end with, I see Barbara's hand up also.
I just wanted, going back to the Misharotam, the idea of making sourdough is that you do leave over a little piece of the dough, which continues to be alive, and then you include it in.
Yeah.
Right, and so it could be that the word so for the sourdough starter actually comes from that same root. So.
That tip might stay in there and be fine once we pull out.
What are we hearing?
3. Because I don't.
Okay, so that's really interesting that She'er and Se'or might themselves be related to each other. Interesting. I never thought about that. Okay, Barbara, you have the last comment, but you had something on in the background that was very loud. Go ahead. Do you want to speak? Barbara, did you want to say something? Okay. We'll call it there. Next time we'll start with the Rashi on Terem Yechmatz. Moadim l'simcha, to which your response is? Or Chaguzel, with a nod towards the great Rabbi Ari Lucas. See you all soon. Great to be studying with you again.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.